Hello, my name is George Harris. I'm the designer of DeltaEPM, the smarter project management solution for Office 365. Today I want to talk about risk management and the approach to risk management using DeltaEPM. So we tend to follow pretty much an industry standard approach to this. So we would start with the identification of risk, and particularly the identification of the critical success factors for the project. So how do you identify those? Well, you would normally brainstorm these with your project team, with your stakeholders. You've got to understand actually what you must achieve with this project. And then from that point of view, you can start to look at, well, what are the risks with achieving that? So using DeltaEPM, we document our critical success factors. It's quite a simple approach. Basically, we click on new item, we'd look at the title of the critical success factor, we would document that, and we would categorize it. And we've got a typical category there of operational, financial, political. But the bottom line is understand what you have to do in order to achieve a successful project. That's your starting point. Then you start to look at, well, the identification of the actual risks that are impacting the project at that particular time. You can do that from many sort of areas of the project initiation, really. You can start to look at, well, what have you got to do in terms of deliverables? How are you going to do it? The whole sort of who, when, what, how approach feeds into the identification of risk. Typically, again, you would brainstorm this with your team doing some kind of risk workshop. And in DeltaEPM, we capture risks in the following way. So we'd add a new item. There's some example risks there in front of you. What we do is we basically give the risk a name, example risk. We would state what that risk is. There is a risk that, and whatever that is. We would give it an impact. So what is the impact? Well, this is a rating of 1 to 5, being 5 being the most severe. And we particularly pick this one as a high severity impact. And we would say, well, how likely is that risk likely to happen? Well, in this case, we can say 4, it's very likely to happen, or likely as what it says there. And then we would also give it a 1 to 3 rating in terms of what is our gut feel for this risk? How important is it? And in this case, I would tend to give it a rating of high based on the likelihood and impact scores. We'd also give it a status. So we would say, okay, is it open? Has anybody done anything with it? No, in which case it's open. Are we starting to mitigate that risk? Yes, we are. So we're going to call it in progress. Is it closed then, or is it transferred to an issue? But in this case, it's in progress. I'm going to assign it to myself, George Harris. And then I'm going to, even though it's still at the identification stage here, I'm going to say what the mitigation of this is. We need to plan the right approach to using product X. Obviously, that can be anything. And then we pull in the critical success factor that we are trying to basically reduce the risk of achieving, so against the risk of achieving it. So we can say we'll put it in that one, it relates to that one. We can also pull in objectives that it relates to as well. We can actually pull in deliverables it relates to. We can also say which phase it's in. Well, it's in the idea phase. We're very early on in this project. And then we can save this particular risk. There we go. And that will then appear on the risk log. Now, straight away, what you can see here is that this appears, it's given, it's got a red RAG status there. It's assigned to the idea phase, but it's showing here as pending. What does that mean? Well, in DeltaEPM, all risks that are raised by anybody within the team, so anybody who has member access to this SharePoint environment can raise a risk. It's important that lots and lots of people can identify and raise risks, because obviously the project management team and the project manager aren't the only people who are going to be aware of the risks in the project. So invite people to raise risks, and you do so by giving access to this tool. However, what we need to ensure here is that this is actually a risk. So the project manager would be notified, because usually they've got an alert set up on this list, and they would go in and have a look at this, and they're saying, well, yeah, okay, it is a risk, I'm going to approve it. Or they could reject it, or they could say, actually, it's probably an issue, and remove it from here and put it into the issues log. In this case, I'm just basically going to approve the risk. simple workflow built into SharePoint to approve the risk. Now, if I hadn't approved it, this risk would stay pending. It would not appear on the dashboards. So where do risks appear? So in the idea phase, for example, if we look at our phase-based management system here within DeltaEPM, you will see this risk now appearing on my dashboard for this phase. Let's make sure I have actually clicked on the idea phase. I think I did. Yes, I did. So if I look down to risk management, and there it is. Example, it's a new risk, and there it is, rated red. So that's how risks appear on this dashboard. Risks will also appear on the overall status report based on their exposure. So what we want to see on the status report is the top risks impacting the project, and they will appear here. And there it is, because it's such a high exposure, it's actually top of the list. And this is our approach to risk management. Very much high visibility, very much dashboard based workflow, so we make sure that the right risks get raised, they're worded appropriately before they appear to senior management, and are actively managed as valid risks. So if you've got any questions around risk management and DeltaEPM, please feel free to contact me through deltaepm.co.uk. Thanks very much for listening.